I want to talk to you. Um, I want to talk to you this morning about Charlie's inspiration. I want to talk to you about Charlie's inspiration. So you can get it. Just say Charlie's inspiration. As you know, I've been doing different types of messages. They call them sermons in the seminary. So I'm doing different type of sermons, and I was um, going over my notes and my inspiration, and I said, Lord, this is what we're going to talk about. He said, yeah, just go for it. Charlie's inspiration. Charlie is an interesting Yorkshire Terrier. He is the family pet dog of Stephen and Vanessa Toussaint. I was introduced to Charlie, this amazing canine, in their home shortly after the death of their previous pet dog, Taz. Now, I go to the Toussaint's home to get my hair cut. Stephen is my barber, the bass player. He's my barber, and I'm the kind of person no one cuts my hair but him unless he's not available and I'm just in a dire situation where I got to get my hair cut. Stephen cuts my hair. Every now and then, Jonathan, one or two times, Jonathan has cut my hair. Um, Upon ringing the doorbell of their home, Charlie is heard yelping on the other side of the door. On average, Stephen opens the door and Charlie proceeds to jump up on me, wagging his tail in seeming excitement to see me. I pet him, carry on playfully. I'll stick my finger out for him to nip at it, and then I pull it back before he can actually, make contact. That's how I play with him. And he jumps out. And interestingly, isn't it amazing? As a dog, he knows how to nibble on the finger without puncturing it, without hurting. It doesn't hurt. Sometimes I let him get my finger, and he just gently gnaws on it. But then I pull it back, and so interesting dog. Over time, Charlie learns the routine from the first time we met. He learned the routine. The routine is I ring the doorbell. I come in. After greetings, I go to the kitchen where I sit on the stool. Stephen places the cutting cape or smock over me. Now, at this time, Charlie calms down and slowly just kind of walks around the chair, myself and Stephen. Sometimes he'll go in between the legs and he'll just slowly walk, just looking up at us, just slowly walking around looking up at us. The clippers rev. Stephen turn on the clippers and Stephen proceeds to cut my hair. And Charlie will quietly go to the hallway and he just sits there attentively waiting. This is all the time. When the clippers are silenced, Charlie excitedly leaps up and hurriedly returns to the kitchen. He knows when those clippers stop. Whenever they stop, he just gets up and comes into the kitchen and he's watching us. And when Stephen unfastens the cutting cape, and it's with Velcro, so it has that tearing sound. When Charlie hears that sound, he starts whimpering with a shrill of sadness as if he knows I'm leaving and doesn't want me to. He I be loud, not though, he just starts whimpering. And I think it's because he knows I'm leaving. But then once I get up and I pay Stephen, he don't cut my hair for free. Not because he charged me, but I don't believe in using folk. Hello. I just thought I'd throw that in. I support my brother. So I pay him. I finished paying him through Cash App, and I head towards the door. Now, this is not in my notes. This is a sidebar. Charlie runs to the door. He's just excited that the door is about to be open because he really wants to go outside. But he does that every time without fail. Now, that's our normal scenario of my haircut visits at the two sons. On occasions, particularly if I go on a Friday or maybe a Thursday, because he can't cut my hair on Saturday, so I have to go late Friday or Thursday. On occasions, Vanessa will arrive home as Stephen is cutting my hair. Upon pulling into the driveway, Charlie leaps up on all fours and he starts wagging his tail, barks repeatedly. After Vanessa shuts off the motor of the car, Charlie hears this. She's getting out of the car and closes the door. Charlie runs to the door in the house and he starts, and I love to see him run because he'll be sliding on their hardwood floor. He'd be sliding, trying to run, and he could barely make it. But he's excited. He runs to the door, and this little terrier, he starts jumping up, and he jumps. I mean, he jumps pretty high. They have a thing that he's not supposed to be able to jump over the restroom so he can't get out. He jumps over that or climbs up on the right. Just smart dog. But he's excited because Vanessa's home. And he's jumping up like he's going to turn the knob and open the door for her. He jumps that high above the doorknob. Y'all are wondering, why am I talking about Charlie this morning? Because he's my inspiration. And so Vanessa enters, and it's obvious that Charlie is acknowledging the arrival of his master and fawning over her, pouring on affection. Anybody have a pet, a dog that does that? When you arrive home, I mean, he's just, or she's just ready to leap on you and kiss you and show you affection. Y'all wondering, where am I going? This arrested my thinking this week. It arrested my thinking, and I was just thinking about Charlie and his excitement to see folk when they come in the house, his excitement when Vanessa comes home. He's crazy about Stephen. He'll probably follow Stephen anywhere. If Stephen goes over here, he's moving right over there. Oh, he ain't going nowhere. Just he'll move over here. He's right there. If it sounds like Stephen is going to the back door, he's going to come and say, where you going? You know, he's just wherever. That's Stephen's buddy. I don't know if he does Clyde like that. Clyde probably don't treat him right. No, I'm just kidding. And I was wondering about Charlie when Dallas came along, because I was wondering if Charlie would be jealous. And for a moment, it almost looked like he was kind of jealous. Dallas was getting all this attention. And Charlie was like, hey, I think I remember seeing one time when she was smaller, he would just get all in the way. He'd get up in there. So, what about me? What about me? What about me? But Charlie, it stayed on my mind. He can hear Vanessa pulling up in the driveway and he gets excited. Charlie's inspiration. What do you do when you sense God near? How do you act when you begin to, watch this, not feel his presence, but you just sense his presence? You sense God is near. Something is about to happen. I just sense something is about to. How do you act? And it's going to sound strange. You ready? Do you get excited and wag your tail? you stand up on all fours? Do you start going towards the entrance of your life and jumping up, trying to open the door? How do you act when you're expecting to see God? Wait a minute. No matter what's going on, because sometimes things happen and we're wondering, where is God? How do you act when you expect him to show up, even though you have no clue that anything is going to be better or could be better? Because there are times that happens. Come on, let's tell the truth. But what do you do? This stayed on my mind because I remembered the primary Greek word for worship in the New Testament. And it's also the primary Greek word that they use to translate the Old Testament when they translate it into Greek, like the Septuagint version. They use this word primarily. It's not the only word, but it's the primary word. It's used more than any other. And it's called proskuneo. Proskuneo. And it literally means to kiss toward. You know how you see somebody, it means to kiss toward. It also paints the picture of a dog licking its master's hand. Now that's a simple way of describing it, because that's the best they can do in their English definition. But what it's really is Charlie. When Charlie hears Vanessa pulls up, he gets excited, stands up, wags his tail, because he's in anticipation of her presence. And then when he hears her slam the door, closes the door, he knows, oh, she's closer. She's closer. So I'm not gonna stay where I am. Don't miss that. How many of us want God to show up in a powerful way, but we don't move from where we are? We just stay right where we are. I've been weak, I've been complaining, I've been frustrated, and I'm going to stay right here because that's the way I feel. But God is near. He's just about to come through, and you are not walking by faith. You're trying to walk by fact and circumstance. I'll give him praise when he show up. And God says, I might not with that attitude. Might not. And I heard what you said. I'm only using human language to convey a message. It's not absolute truth. It's just reality. And we know God never goes anywhere. He never, but it seems like it to us in this flesh. It seems like he's not here. Somebody hit me up, text me and said, Pastor, I'm confused. I'm frustrated. I got a lot of questions, but I ain't getting no answers. Seems like God is silent. And the question becomes, what do you do? Two basic things, and sometimes somebody still got to tell you to do that. And I'm not talking about in any kind of, chiding somebody. It's just that sometimes as human beings, we get to a place, I know what I believe. I know what my convictions are. I know what I grew up believing. I know what I've been saying. But right now, my flesh has me flustered. And what am I supposed to say? Remind me. What do I say? Huh? Because God ain't saying nothing right now. I'm not hearing. And now, yes, if I were to give you a deep answer, because I'm very metaphysical in my thinking, I would tell you, well, maybe you're not on the right frequency right now. But I understand something from maturity. Sometimes you cannot get on the right frequency because the situation is so troubling and so trying that your mind goes. That's our reality. That's our reality. Sometimes I tell people, I remember one of the last times I went to go see Dr. Vicki Lee before she made her transition. She was so weak and she was in the hospital and she was so excited that I showed up. I walked into the hospital and I went to take a seat by her bed and somebody else was visiting her. She tried to put everybody out. She told the nurses, okay, stop, just leave. My pastor has come, leave. I'm going to say this. I don't mean no harm in it, but I'm telling you the truth. Don't ever put me in that kind of position. Do not ever put any man in the position that they are above anybody else. I don't have no supernatural powers. I have faith just like you do. Just like you. And there are times when I get calls, Pastor, and I let them know I'm not showing up immediately because I got to deal with me first. Sometimes I hear your problem and it messes me up. When I find out you're going through something, I have to cry first. Because when I show up to you, I don't want to be in tears. I want to show up to you in strength and in power. But you need to know there's no other human being like Jesus. You can't depend on another man like you depend on God. Hello, somebody. Oh, yeah, I'm going to tell you what thus said the Lord, and I'm going to stand with you. But I went to her room and I just sat. And sometimes I'm going to tell you something about me. Sometimes I cannot tell you all the truth. Sometimes I visit people and I know that they're in transition mode. I can't say that right then and there. I can't say that to the family. What you don't understand, I've had many, I'm going to tell you something about me. Can I be honest? Can I be transparent? In the natural, there are times I do not like to go to the hospital and visit. And I'll tell you why. Because there are at least 3 people in my life experience, in my ministry experience, that I had to go and speak to them, and it was to tell them, let go and go home. I had to tell them, this is your hour to submit to the death angel and go on. We live by faith, not by sight. Don't be trying to hang on here. Let go. First one was the wife of my music mentor, Professor Marvin Jenkins. I watched a woman who was probably nearly 300 pounds in her life. She went down to 90 some odd pounds. She was at Brotman Hospital dealing with cancer. When they called me, she wasn't recognizing anybody, didn't recognize her husband, didn't recognize anybody. And she lays there on her side, facing the window, not saying a word. And when I arrived, they called me to go. Her husband called me, I need you to go down and see my wife. I went to the hospital, got to the hospital, I got on the elevator and I said, Lord, if you do not tell me anything, I'm not saying anything. I'm just going to stand there and look. And when I got to the floor, the nurses were there to greet me because they were greeting everybody that went in to see her to let them know she does not look like herself. She literally looked like a skeleton with eyeballs just glassy-eyed. And they said, we don't want you to be frightened. I said, okay, I can deal with that. Said, now she doesn't recognize anybody. She's not recognizing anybody. And I said, okay, I'm still walking towards the door. God ain't said nothing. I said, Lord, I'm telling you once again, if you don't say something to me, I'm going to stand at the door and I'm just going to look. I ain't even going to step in. As soon as I got to the door, Vonnie, this woman who was unable to turn herself over, she did this. She was facing the window. She literally turned over, her eyes going this, she turned over. And I'm telling you, when I saw it, it looked like a hand was turning her because she didn't make no effort. Like, you know how we move it. Her body just turned over. She looked at me round in the eye and said, Bernard. Now remember, she hadn't been recognizing anybody, had not been talking. That scared me. Amen. Scared Pastor Rhone. Scared God's man of faith and power. Did not look like herself, looked like a skeleton just wasting away. And she turns and looks at me and says, Bernard. And I'm like, and then all of a sudden, God spoke. And when I left there, I said, God, we got to have a talk. Why do you wait till the last minute? Does anybody know what I'm talking? It's like he waits till the last minute and then he says something. And I said, thank you very much. And all he told me to tell her, I said, it's all right. Go home. And that was it. After that, they called me. Her husband called me and said, Bernard, I don't know what happened, but she's recognizing everybody. She called her own pastor and her husband and gave them her funeral arrangements. She said, "This is what I want for my funeral." Well, see, she had gotten the word from the Lord. It's okay to go home. Sometimes, maybe, and I didn't question it. I just figured it out. Probably nobody was open to God to tell her to let go and go. Because we want people to hold on. I just had to tell the Lord to go. Second person was my godfather, my actual godfather in the natural realm. He was, it was amazing because my godmother, the one that I talked about last night, Burma Love, that got happy, and when she get happy in church, she laughed. She did. She would get happy in church. And she folded her arms. That's how she got happy. It's like, and think that in a Baptist church, everything is quiet. Everybody glory to God. She said up there. It was funny. Okay, you have to be there to get. I said you don't get it, and she just laughed. Yeah. Now she had been sick. She had been sick. She had been sick, Jackie. She had been sick for a long time. She probably stayed in the hospital like 4 or 5 months. And while she was in the hospital, she literally changed shades 3 times lighter than she was. We watched her skin literally peel off of her from head to toe. Whatever she was going through, her skin from head to toe just peeled all off. And they just took a process of peeling, and she shed her a layer of skin like a snake. And we thought for sure she gonna die. She survived, got out the hospital, went home. She had lost some of her mind. She didn't have much to start with. No, just get out. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don't rebuke me. But she used to do oratory, and she could remember James Weldon's creation. And God said, and she did it from memory. She didn't have no paper. That was her ministry. But after she got sick, she couldn't do that anymore. She couldn't remember that. Shade lighter and so forth. After that, Nikki, her husband took ill. My godfather took ill. He went to the hospital, and she told me to go see him. He wasn't responding. I went to see him. He responded. And while I'm there, the Lord said again, tell him it's okay. Come on home. And so I told him. Shortly thereafter, he made his transition. And then the third person was Mama Ruthie. She was at home. I was away in New Orleans. I believe it was New Orleans. And they called me. And I said, put the phone to her ear. She wasn't responding. Put the phone to her ear. And when they told me the phone was at her ear, I said, Ruthie, it's all right. Go on and cross over. And I don't know how long was it after the next morning made her departure. And so because of that, sometimes I don't like to visit people in the hospital because naturally, for fear, I'm going to have to tell them, go home. And so I always tell God sometime in advance now, I say, look, hey, Lord, I would appreciate if you kind of give me a warning. Let me know something, because I don't want to go up in here and family members be in there and I'd say, okay, y'all, they got to go. Okay, go home. They got to go. Y'all just said, y'all don't, do y'all understand? Maybe a little bit. And that kind of like bothers me. And Dr. Vicky Lee, her daughter Venus, called me before she made her transition. And the doctors were telling her, said all of her organs are shutting down. It's just a matter of time. And so they called me to make the decision whether they would put her on life support or not. I said, don't call me and give me that kind of, I don't want that kind of responsibility. I'm just going to go to the prayer closet. You decide that. But that's what people do. And many times I think I called Gail and Alice. I said, okay, I need y'all to pray because I don't know what to do right now. Oh, come on. Yeah. I don't know what her family's wishes are. I don't know. I tried to get Venus. I said, what do you really want, Venus? You're adult. What do you really want? I said, Pastor, it's your decision. I just said, I'll call you back. I'll call you back. I don't really know if I called her back. I said, I'll call you back. And I just talked to the Lord. And how about this? God didn't tell me anything specific. So when I did talk with her, I said, listen, it's in God's hands. We're just going to leave it in God's hands. Whatever happens, we're going to rejoice because she got victory already, all right? And of course, she made her transition. But those are some of the things that I have to deal with. So I understand we get to a certain point and we just don't know what to do. But the challenge is this: don't stay where you are when you sense God's presence, when you sense him near, and when you expect him to show up. Don't stay where you are. And I mean here in your mind, don't stay where you are. In your emotions, don't stay where you are. Because many times if you stay where you are emotionally and psychologically, that will destroy you. That will paralyze you. God, is that helping anybody? Let me conclude with this. I'm going to tell you in advance, I got my first challenge on some of my theological stances. And thanks for the social media, and I'm ready to handle it. But I want to share with you maybe 3 verses. I'm not going to be able to expound on this, but 3 verses that changed my thinking about worship and about praise. Did y'all get that? That's actually what I'm talking about. Charlie's inspiration forced me to really think about worship and praise, because when I saw that, when I saw Charlie act towards Vanessa and towards Stephen, I said, I wonder, how do we really act towards God? Is our worship and praise, and this may not be all of y'all, but is our worship and praise just a song and a dance? Is it just a song and then I'm dealing with a lot of situations of people getting bothered by you know, people don't respond. I deal with a lot of worship leaders and worship. They don't stand up. They don't clap their hands. And I start meditating and think about that, Linda. And I said, well, maybe they don't need to. I start getting flustered and frustrated, Tony. I said, maybe they don't need to. Maybe we're trying to push folk into doing something that God doesn't really ordain. Because of the danger of thinking that praise and worship is just a song and a dance, you begin to depend on the song and the dance more than God. Because we start thinking that in our church culture, that's the only way he can show up. That's when God shows up. But wait a minute, God's been here. God's been here. So Suzanne, watch this. These passages messed my thinking up. Linda, these passages messed my thinking up. Bro, I was thinking about having some chairs up here and letting Aubrey and Linda sit up in the chairs and we have a discussion. Maybe we'll do that another time. They said, hey, let's just talk. But watch this. Go to Acts chapter 17, verse 24. Years ago when I saw this verse, Pat, it messed up my thinking about praise and worship. I read this one verse. Did I say 24? Okay, we'll start there. Verse 24. Acts 17, 24. Y'all get it. Y'all get it. Y'all get it. Turn there. Turn to these 3 passages I want you to look at. We're going to try to be out here in just a little bit. Lord, please speed me up. Acts 17, 24. God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands. I'm not convinced that we really embrace that last truth. Now watch verse 25. Neither is worshiped with men's hands. When I read that, I started saying, well, why do we keep encouraging people to lift up holy hands? Why do we keep asking people to do stuff? God gave me answers. Everybody may not like the answer. And of course, you know what we do? We go back particularly to the Old Testament and say, well, the Bible said lift up holy hands. Da, 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 da. I said, okay, y'all want to do that, but you don't practice what the Bible says about prayer. Because Paul tells Timothy in his letter that men should pray everywhere lifting up holy hands. I said, y'all don't be praying, lift up hands when you pray. That's in the book. What's not in the book, you practice. You will never find in the Bible telling you to take a posture of clasping your hands like this and kneeling down. The Bible never instructs us to do that, but that's what we do. That's what most people do. I mean, that's the symbol of prayer. Don't y'all have emojis on your phone? Type in prayer and see which emoji come up. That's the emoji for prayer. Why? Because man has done something and God did not say that. God says, lift up holy hands. I taught on that before. I'll teach on it again, not today, but I'll tell you why we're to lift our hands in prayer. Anyway, he says, neither is worshiped with men's hands. Now, this word worshiped in the original language is not the normal word proskuneo. This word, though it can mean worship, it is the word from which we get our English word therapy. It's the word therapeuo, and it means to wait upon menially. It also means to adore God. It means to relieve disease, cure, heal, worship. That makes me think that there's healing in worship when you do it right. Tell somebody there's healing in worship, which means you don't always have to pray when you're sick. You might need to worship. You might just need to worship. You might need to worship. All right, now watch this. Neither is worshiped with men's hands as though he needed anything. That's talking about God. In other words, you mean to tell me you gonna wait on God? Serve God, because that's what the word means. Serve God. You know how we say, come on, serve the Lord. And that's why I always talk about the song, and I know him, I met him, Nikki, I know it's probably the first solo you sang, you know, only what you do for Christ will last. I understand what's being said, but technically that's not the sound truth. What lasts is what God does and what God says. That's what the book says. The only thing that would stand is the counsel of God. So, see, here's the danger of embracing only what you do for Christ will last. If you're the one making up what you're going to do for him. See, we got to go back to Matthew. He said, in that last day, many will come to me and say, Lord, Lord, did we not do great miracles? Did we not cast out many demons in your name? Didn't we do it, Lord? And Jesus said, the Lord will say, who are you? I don't even know you. That's the danger of getting caught up in our religious system, in our religious culture. We got to do it like this. Why? Because God is in it. Really? We have more confidence in God being in our systems than in us. We have more confidence in God abiding in a building than him abiding here. I love an illustration that Fred Price used to use all the time. You dare not, you would never light up a cigarette in the house of God, but you'll smoke in this body. And the Bible says this is the temple. This ain't the temple of God. This is our dwelling place. We've designated this as a sanctuary, a dwelling place, a gathering place for believers. But we got to change our thinking because the church is not a building. Even though by the dictionary, we do refer to a building as the church, but that harms our lifestyle. It confuses our theology because when the Bible talks about the church, it's talking about an assembly of people. And if we don't think that way, and I know people say that's nitpicking. Well, God is a God of detail. He told them how to kill their animals, how to prepare them. You couldn't cook this in milk. You couldn't deal with this that way. You couldn't wear polyester. You couldn't wear two fabrics. You can't be mixing and mingle the fabrics. Now, some say this suit I got on, it's a wool blend. I'm going to hell. That's good to laugh. Watch this. God don't need nothing. Verse 25. Neither is worship with men's hands as though he needed anything, seeing he giveth to all life and breath and all things. This began to mess me up, Linda. I begin to question. I begin to say, okay, God, so why are we constantly doing these things and saying to these things? Look at Romans chapter 12. When I understood this messed me up. Does anybody ever get messed up by the word? Does the word ever challenges your convictions and beliefs? Yeah. And see, there are a lot of things we grew up, we were told. But as we grow up and mature, we got to learn some things. And sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, it's appropriate to question your convictions. It's appropriate to question what you believe. Romans chapter 12, verse 1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service, which is your reasonable service, which is your reasonable service. And a lot of people, like I did, we were told, we thought that that was giving service into the Lord in the church, singing in the choir, working on the usher board, you know, doing things. And then I happened to read the Amplified Bible. And it said, I appeal to you, therefore, brethren, and beg of you, in view of all the mercies of God, to make a decisive dedication of your bodies, presenting all your members and faculties as a living sacrifice, wholly devoted, consecrated, and well-pleasing to God, which is your reasonable, rational, intelligent service or spiritual worship. What? What, Lord? You want intelligent worship? You want me to be intelligent with my worship? You mean I can't lose my mind and let the Holy Ghost take control and just say anything that comes out or do anything? You mean I can, okay, this is being bad, Lord, forgive me. I can't just slam bodies down and tell them to get up healed? Okay, y'all forgive me. I watch too much YouTube. You know, it's like we do some ridiculous things in the name of the Lord. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Now, listen, let me clear it up, those of you who are watching. There are times when God will truly tell inspired men and women to do ridiculous things. One time he had a prophet to go throughout the multitude naked. Naked. He has had prophets go crazy, do crazy things. But you knew it was God because when they did it, there was a presence. There was a presence. He had David, the Bible says, dance out of his clothes. And his wife got mad. She said, what? You gonna shame yourself as the king and just berated him? And God said, woman, you gonna talk about my man like that? God said, you need to shut up. As a matter of fact, I tell you how much you need to shut up. I'm shutting your womb. No children for you. God is funny to me. Now, do you see that the rational or the reasonable service is not stuff that you do, but at the same time, watch this. I just came across this, Davion. This was good. True worship is also workship. Worthship is also workship. The problem with our worship idea today is that we only do it at so-called church. And we don't think that how we serve others is an act of worship. We don't think, watch this, I'm going to go here because I just picked this up, got this from a Jewish rabbi. We don't think that making money is worship. I'm going to have a whole series, Rhonda. I want you to tell a lot of your friends. I want y'all, men in particular, I want y'all to tell a whole lot of friends because we're going to talk about money for real. I heard one Jewish rabbi say that if you're not making money, you're not pleasing God. And he showed scripture on it. Hello, somebody. And how much people don't want to talk about money. And I always said, I like that. It pleases God to make money. When you make money, you better position yourself to be of better service to people. They did a survey, and guess what they found out? People who have money are more pleasing to God and are more helpful and don't care about things more so than people who ain't got none. People who ain't got none go around looking, trying to look like they got some, and they end up with none. Hello? People with money walk around in jeans and t-shirts. You see that? And guess what? They have an investment portfolio that's crazy. You might follow them home. Some of them have a whole garage of collectible automobiles, classics, just, and all they do is wake up and polish them. And we look at that and say, that's a shame. How many hungry folk are out there? And then my mind goes crazy and I hear Jesus. Oh, the poor you have with you always. And then sometimes I'm going to ask people, well, how many can you feed? But I ain't got nothing to feed nobody. I'm trying to feed myself. How many pairs of tennis shoes do you have in your closet that Michael Jordan is benefiting from, that Nike is benefiting from? You paying $200 and $300 for those, and you can't put food in the cupboard. Maybe you should have on the flip flops and keep some food in your house. I don't mean to. I don't mean to be. I don't mean to be. Uh, yeah. I don't mean harm. I mean damage. At some point, we got to wake up, and I'm finally going to say it. I want you to find one more passage, then I'm going to sit out. I want you to go to John chapter 4. Oh, is that my cue? There's. I want y'all to really go home and pray that Pastor Rhone gets shorter, not in height. The devil is a liar. Be careful now. I'm quick-witted. Laugh at me and talk about me. I come back at you. I'll clap back. Yes, I will. Have you found John 4? I love this passage, but there's something that I saw here, Aubrey, and you can help me out with this. Aubrey and I, we have the type of relationship iron sharpens iron. Sometimes he and I will get into it, and I talk to Linda. Linda get on the phone and say, you know your brother. Just, anyway, the Bible says that God is, verse 24, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. And the woman said unto him, I know that the Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. When he is come, he will tell us all things. Jesus said unto her, I that speak unto you am he. Interesting. Interesting. Let me go back to the verse that I really want to cover. Where Jesus says, okay, verse 21. Jesus said unto her, verse 21, I'm sorry. Jesus said unto her, woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor at Jerusalem worship the Father. The significance of his statement is Jesus says there's going to come a day, and now is the hour is coming. The hour is coming when what? Ye shall neither in this mountain nor at Jerusalem. He is saying there's coming a day when the location of your worship is not going to be at all a matter. And what's interesting today is I believe we still have a problem with that. We still focus on locations, going to church to worship. But are you worshiping at home? And then watch what he says. Ye worship, ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. Now watch this, watch this, watch this, watch this. Watch this, Aubrey. Watch this, DJ. Watch this, everybody. Verse 23. But the hour cometh, and what? Now is when the true worshipers shall do what? Worship the Father. How? Now look at the last verse. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. I believe that we've misread this verse and we end up thinking God seeks worship. But that's not what he said. He said, he seeketh such to worship. In other words, God is not as interested in your worship as he is in you. He seeketh such to worship him. God is not seeking. Watch this. We got to stop talking about strange fire. That doesn't exist in this hour. That was for the Old Testament. Under grace, there is no such thing as strange fire. You can't find it under grace. We got to stop judging how people worship from the standpoint of what they do. God says, I ain't interested in that. What I'm interested in is the person who's worshiping. And at some point, we got to help ourselves to understand what people do in the worship service. I have to even learn it. Because I admit, I've been in church all my life. I am in the tangles of tradition and experience. I enjoy church. But God says, be careful that you enjoy church, quote unquote, more than me. Because what happens when I want to move in your silence? What happens when I want the organ to stop playing? What happens when I don't want the drummer to play? What happens when God says, I'm not going to move that way? I'm going to move this way. And you're not ready. Why? Because you done told everybody and told yourself God only moves like this. And I'm not saying that we change anything on our own cognizance. I'm just simply saying we got to get to a point where we're very sensitive to God and think, okay, God is not moved by my methods. Yeah. God is not moved by my methods. Watch this. How about this? Can I submit this? Stop trying to move God. Move yourself to be able to sense when he's moving. I mean, come on, if we go even to the Old Testament and use that as an example, when the children of Israel came out of Egypt, they were in the wilderness. What was the sign of movement? The cloud and the pillar of fire. During the day, there was a cloud. At night, a pillar of fire. He said, when the cloud move, you move. Today, we're starting to teach people that we move the cloud. We keep this lie. She stopped filming. Somebody film this. We keep this lie up. We're going to usher in the presence of God. No, you're not. That becomes a problem. Now we're in control of God. God, this way. Oh, come on. And we think we sing the song, we do this, we do that, we're going to make God do it. And God says, And all of a sudden we get in the case of Elijah. Earthquake, God ain't in it. A wind that can break rocks, God ain't in it. All of a sudden, still, small voice. God. Wow. Somebody's sitting in the hospital and says, God, I don't know. Nobody there to confess the word. Nobody there to sing a song. Nobody to lay hands on and pray. All of a sudden, in their deepest despair, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. And all of a sudden, the Spirit whispers, I got you. I got you. And all of a sudden, all of the signals on the machine start changing. Not necessarily instantaneously, but they just start changing. And the doctors and the nurses don't know what's going on. They don't even think it. We didn't change the medication. We didn't do anything different. I say this, we just left it alone. Look at your neighbor and say, sometimes you just got to leave it alone and let God do what he's already ordained to do. Father, in the name of Jesus, thank you so very much. I believe I've discharged my duty. And I pray, oh God, that everyone on the sound of my voice has gotten the message from Charlie's inspiration. And And maybe when we just think about your goodness, we really will get excited about the fact that you're always with us. And it's not so much you that's coming closer because you're already here, but the manifestation of the promise is coming closer into manifestation. Sometimes it's my joy, because there are times I admit I'm not as joyous all the time. I'm not at the same level of joy. I can't pay a bill. That don't make me happy. Lord, that's our reality, and I know you know it. But I also know that that reality challenges us to not be moved by the things we see, but to move in faith. And so sometimes we have to press through our feelings and just say thank you anyway. We have to press through all the frustrations that's around us and just say thank you anyway. So we say thank you in the name of Jesus. And all in agreement said amen. Did you get something? Did you get